Welcome to Learn English Fast.
Speak English with confidence.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. My name is Henry, and I'm so happy you are here with me today. Now, let me start with a simple question. Have you ever felt that learning English is very, very difficult? Maybe you study hard, but you still cannot speak fluently. Maybe you listen to native speakers, but you cannot understand them clearly. Or maybe you feel nervous every time you try to speak in English. If you answered yes, then this episode is for you. Today, we are going to talk about a very important question. Why is learning English difficult? Many learners feel frustrated. They say, I can read a little, but I cannot speak. Or, I can understand, but only if people talk slowly. Some learners even think, maybe I am not smart enough to learn English. But don't worry, this is not true. The problem is not you. The problem is that English itself has many challenges. In this episode, I will explain the main reasons why learning English feels so hard. We will talk about grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and also about confidence and practice. And most importantly, at the end, I will give you some tips to make learning easier and more enjoyable. So, stay with me until the end, because you will not only understand why English is difficult, but also how you can overcome these problems. All right, let's get started. Before we talk about the difficulties, let's take a moment to understand why English is so important. Today, English is everywhere. It is the international language. If you want to travel, you will probably need English. If you want a good job, many companies ask for English. If you want to study at a university abroad, most classes are in English. And of course, a lot of movies, music, and books are also in English. Think about it. English is like a key. With this key, you can open many doors. You can connect with people from different countries. You can learn from the internet, because so much information online is written in English. You can share your ideas with the world. This is why so many people want to learn English. But here is the truth. Because it is so important, many learners also feel pressure. They feel they must be perfect. And this pressure sometimes makes learning even more difficult. So, remember this. English is important, yes. But don't think you need to be perfect. You just need to communicate. You just need to use English to share your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas. That is the real purpose of language. Now that we understand why English is important, let's go deeper and talk about the first big reason why learning English is difficult. English grammar. All right, let's talk about the first reason why English is difficult. Grammar. English grammar is not always logical. For many learners, it feels complicated and sometimes even confusing. Let me give you a few examples. First, let's think about verbs. In some languages, verbs follow simple rules. But in English, we have many irregular verbs. For example, we say go in the present, but went in the past. We do not say goed, or we say buy in the present, but bought in the past. There is no clear rule. You just have to memorize these irregular forms. That can be very hard. Second, English has many tenses. In fact, there are 12 main tenses. We don't just say past, present, or future. We also have continuous tenses, perfect tenses, and combinations like present, perfect, continuous. For example, I eat, I am eating, I have eaten, I have been eating. They all sound similar, but the meaning is a little different. Learners often ask, which one should I use? And that's why grammar feels so difficult. Another challenge is articles. In English, we use a, an, and the. But in many languages, articles do not even exist. So learners ask, why do I say a book but the sun? Why do I need an apple but not in water? Articles are small words, but they cause big problems for learners. And finally, let's not forget about word order. In English, we usually follow the subject-verb-object pattern. For example, I eat apples. But in some languages, the order is different. So when learners speak, they often mix the order and it sounds strange to native speakers. So yes, grammar is one of the biggest reasons why English is difficult. But don't worry, we will also talk about how you can overcome this problem later in the episode. Now, let's move to the second reason why English is so hard: the huge vocabulary. Now let's talk about the second reason why learning English is difficult: vocabulary. English has a very, very big vocabulary. In fact, English has more words than almost any other language in the world. For learners, this feels like a mountain. You see so many words, and you think, how can I ever learn them all? One problem is that English has many words with similar meanings. For example, we can say big, large, huge, enormous. All of these words mean big, but they are used in slightly different ways. Learners often feel confused and ask, which word should I use? Another challenge is idioms and phrasal verbs. These are small phrases that have special meanings. For example, give up means stop trying. Look after means take care of. But if you only translate word by word, you will not understand. And there are hundreds of these expressions in English. That makes vocabulary much harder to master. Also, English has borrowed many words from other languages, like French, Latin, and German. Because of this, the spelling and meaning of words are not always clear. For example, the words chef and ballet come from French, and they don't follow normal English spelling rules. Learners often ask, why is this word spelled like that? And finally, the big vocabulary problem is memory. Learners feel they must remember thousands of words. Sometimes they learn a new word today, but forget it tomorrow. This can feel frustrating. So, yes, vocabulary is another big reason why English feels difficult. But don't be afraid. You don't need to learn every single word. You only need the words that you use often. Later, I will share some simple ways to make learning vocabulary easier. Now, let's move to the third big reason why English is hard: pronunciation and spelling. Now, let's look at another very big reason why English is difficult: pronunciation and spelling. In many languages, words are written the same way they are spoken. But in English, spelling and pronunciation are often very different. This can be very confusing for learners. For example, look at these words: though, tough, cough, through. They all end with oh, but they are all pronounced differently. Even native speakers sometimes laugh about how strange this is. Another problem is different accents. English is spoken in many countries: the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and more. Each country has its own way of pronouncing words. For example, the word water sounds different in American English and British English. Learners often ask, which one is correct? The truth is, they are all correct, but different. Also, English uses word stress and intonation. This means that the way you stress or say a word can change its meaning. For example, the word record. If I say record with stress on the first part, it means a noun, like a music record. But if I say record with stress on the second part, it means a verb, like to record a video. This can be very confusing for learners. And finally, some sounds in English do not exist in other languages. For example, the et sound in think or this. Many learners find it very hard to pronounce because they don't have that sound in their own language. So yes, pronunciation and spelling are another big challenge in English. But don't worry. Later we will talk about ways to practice and improve pronunciation step by step. Now, let's go to the fourth reason why English is difficult: fear and confidence issues. Now let's talk about another reason why learning English feels difficult. This reason is not about grammar or vocabulary. It's about fear and confidence. Many learners actually know a lot of English. They study grammar. They learn words. They listen to English videos. But when it is time to speak, they freeze. They feel nervous. They feel afraid of making mistakes. This fear is very common. Learners think, what if people laugh at me? What if I say something wrong? What if I don't understand the answer? And because of this fear, they stay quiet. They don't practice speaking. And when they don't practice, their English does not improve. Another problem is shyness. Some learners are naturally shy, and speaking a new language makes them feel uncomfortable. They don't want to speak in front of other people. And sometimes, the pressure from school or society makes it worse. In school, maybe the teacher corrects every mistake, and learners start to think they are bad at English. Or maybe people around them say, "You should be fluent already." This pressure makes English feel stressful instead of fun. But here is the truth. Mistakes are normal. Everyone makes mistakes when they learn a new language. Even native speakers sometimes make mistakes. So, the real problem is not your ability. The real problem is fear. And if you can reduce that fear, you will find English much easier to learn. Now, let's move to the fifth reason why learning English is difficult: the lack of a practice environment. The fifth reason why learning English is difficult is because many learners do not have a good practice environment. Think about it. If you live in an English-speaking country, you hear English every day. On the street, in the shop, at school, at work. You are surrounded by English. You don't have a choice. You must use it. But many learners live in countries where people do not speak English in daily life. Maybe English is only in the classroom. Dans zrenia 2 or 3 hours a week. After class, you go home and everyone speaks your first language. This makes it very hard to practice. Also, many learners focus only on textbooks. Textbooks are useful, yes, but real life is different. In real life, people speak fast. They use slang, idioms, and casual expressions. If you only study from a book, you might feel lost when you listen to real conversations. Another problem is lack of speaking partners. Many learners study alone. They practice grammar and vocabulary, but they don't have anyone to talk with. And as we know, language is for communication. If you don't practice speaking, it is very hard to become fluent. So yes, the lack of a practice environment is a big challenge. But don't worry. Later in this episode, I will share some ideas to create your own English environment, even if you live in a non-English speaking country. Now that we have looked at the main reasons why English is difficult, let's move to the positive side. In the next part, I will talk about how to overcome these difficulties and make your English learning journey easier. We have talked about many reasons why English is difficult: grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, fear, and lack of practice. Now let's talk about something very important: how to overcome these difficulties. The first thing to remember is this: making mistakes is normal. You cannot learn English without mistakes. Mistakes are not your enemy. They are your teacher. Every time you make a mistake, you learn something new. So don't be afraid to speak, even if it is not perfect. The second tip is daily practice. You don't need to study English for 5 hours a day. Even 15 or 20 minutes every day is very powerful. For example, listen to a short English podcast, read a page of a book, or write a few sentences in a journal. Small steps every day bring big results over time. The third tip is use simple methods. You don't need expensive courses. You can practice by listening and repeating. This is called shadowing. You can use free apps, or you can talk to yourself in English when you are alone. Even describing what you are doing, like, "I am cooking," "I am cleaning," helps your brain think in English. And finally, remember the most important thing: motivation. English is not easy, but it is possible for everyone. Don't compare yourself with others. Focus on your own progress. Even if today you can only say one sentence, that is already better than yesterday. So yes, English has many challenges, but with patience, daily practice, and courage, you can overcome all of them. Now, let's finish today's episode with a short summary and some final words of encouragement. All right, my friends, let's quickly review what we talked about today. English feels difficult for many reasons: its complicated grammar, its huge vocabulary, its strange pronunciation and spelling, the fear of speaking, and the lack of a practice environment. But remember, these difficulties are normal. Every learner faces them. The good news is you can overcome them. Make mistakes, practice a little every day, use simple methods, and most importantly, don't give up. Step by step, your English will improve. Thank you so much for joining me today on the English Learning Podcast. I hope this episode helped you understand why English feels difficult and also gave you the motivation to keep going. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Keep practicing, keep smiling, and keep believing in yourself. This is Henry, saying goodbye for now. See you in the next episode.